Good morning, Abundant Life Church. This is Pastor Chris. Today we're going to be looking at Romans chapter 12, verses 9 down through 21. When I grew up in the Bay Area in the early 70s when I started following baseball, the team was the Oakland A's. San Francisco Giants, the Oakland A's won the World Series 3 straight years, 3 years in a row. I was hooked. This was the Reggie Jackson team. They were the team. In fact, like I told you in a sermon a few months ago, I got to meet Gene Tennis, their first baseman. And he was telling me all the stories about fights in the locker room, what have you. But I remember as a kid, 72 World Series, Joe Rudy made this incredible catch against the wall, backhanded leaping catch, and he's hanging on the wall. I used to have my friends throw a tennis ball up against the garage, and I would try to catch it just like Joe Rudy. Here's the thing with that team. They hated each other. There were fist fights in the locker room all the time. They didn't get along, and everybody hated the owner, Charlie Finley. They all wanted to be traded. Nobody liked the city of Oakland. They didn't like each other. And they won the World Series 3 years in a row. They had no team unity. Apparently, they didn't need any. So here's my question. Do you have to love each other to win the World Series? Well, apparently you don't. And you may think, well, it helps, but you don't. All right. So does that same attitude work in the church? Or do we need church unity? Do we need to operate in love? You're going to get very little argument from anyone who says that we need to serve God and serve others. That's all fine and good. But isn't it enough just to do the work? Well, Paul doesn't seem to think so. Apparently, how you serve matters, your attitude and how you treat other people. Okay, all right. This isn't a baseball team, it's a church, and we can see that. But our question here is why? We're not disagreeing with the fact that we need to work together in love. I want to understand why that's so important. If we're helping people, why are our attitudes essential? Isn't it the help itself that's enough? Now, you're going to say it does matter. Yes, of course it does. Let's find out why. Paul had told the Roman church they were supposed to lovingly serve God and work together. Now, in the passage right before this, Paul had told the church that you all have gifts, or tools as we call them, from God. And those tools, those gifts, weren't given so people could feel superior to other Christians who had different tools. They weren't given so we could rank ourselves in order of importance. They were meant to be used to serve God. Look at verses 9 and 10 now. Love must be sincere. Hate what is evil, cling to what is good. Be devoted to one another in love. Honor one another above yourselves. Paul knew human nature. And he knew people, if everybody has these different gifts, these different abilities, different ways of serving, eventually they're going to start to compare those gifts and they're going to start to determine who has the better gifts. And what does that do to unity in a church? So to maintain that unity, he asked them to consider others above themselves. That doesn't mean that others are better or others are smarter. It means we put the needs of others above our own needs, because that's the only way this is ever going to work. Otherwise, church becomes this competition to see who has the best gift and who God likes the most. All right, let's look at verses 11 through 16 right now. It says, never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervor, serving the Lord. Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer. Share with the Lord's people who are in need. Practice hospitality. Bless those who persecute you. Bless, do not curse. Rejoice with those who rejoice. Mourn with those who mourn. Live in harmony with one another. Do not be proud, but be willing to associate with people of low position. Do not be conceited. All right, so serving, we see, means we have to put others first. We need to stop worrying about how great or how important we are or how magnificent our gift is compared to others. Now, the only way we're going to be able to do that, to pull off this kind of behavior, is if we're acting in love. Without love, this serving God in the church is simply not going to work. And we won't use the tools that God blesses us with properly. Now, no one is going to argue with the idea that we need to have love. We agree it's necessary in serving others. But again, we keep coming back to some really amazing things have been accomplished by people who didn't get along. The Beatles broke up. One of my favorite groups, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, have a long history of hating each other, and yet they accomplished great things. Why in the church do we have to get along in order to work? That's our original question. Why is it necessary not just to serve, but to be loving as we serve? Again, we agree that it is. But do we understand why it is so vitally important? If I'm out to dinner and my waiter is in a terrible mood and is being kind of rude, that's an issue. I care how that waiter treats me. I don't care what kind of mood the cook is in. As long as he's not spitting in my food, I don't care if the cook is having a bad day or not. The waiter, on the other hand, because he's having contact with me, that does matter. But apparently, in the restaurant that God is running, even the cooks have to be nice. It seems like it should work to be able to serve God without love, but it won't. Okay? Again, we keep coming back to this question. Why won't it? What do you say to someone who asks why it matters that we serve God in a certain way? Isn't it enough that we just serve? Why does it matter how we serve? Why does it matter that we do things lovingly? Well, to find our answer, tune in next time. Until then, have a great day.